It was 2:17 a.m. when my phone started vibrating. Not ringing, vibrating. 3 short buzzes, then silence, then 3 more. That was our code. I sat up instantly. My son never called me at that hour unless something was wrong. I picked up. "Dad." His voice wasn't broken. It wasn't crying. It was worse. It was empty. "I need you, just for tonight." There are sentences that change a man forever. That was mine. My son Ethan was 19. 19, that strange age where boys pretend to be men and fathers pretend they're no longer needed. After his mother and I divorced, he chose to live with her, not because he loved me less, but because teenagers confuse comfort with loyalty. We didn't fight, we drifted. Text messages instead of conversations, birthdays instead of bonding, advice instead of presence. I told myself it was normal, but that night at 2:17 a.m., normal disappeared. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'm outside Mom's house." "You live there?" "I don't anymore." Silence. And then he whispered something that tightened my chest. "I messed up, Dad." When I reached him, he was sitting on the curb. No bag, no jacket, just a hoodie and shattered pride. He had fallen in love. Her name was Alyssa. First serious relationship, first I love you, first future planned around someone else. He thought she was forever. She thought he was temporary. I later learned she had been talking to someone else for months. Ethan found out through a message that wasn't meant for him, the worst kind of betrayal, accidental truth. When he confronted her, she said something that destroyed him. "You're not enough." 3 words, 3 bullets. "I don't want advice," he said as we sat in my car. "I don't want you to fix it. I just don't want to be alone tonight." That sentence cut deeper than anything else because I knew what he wasn't saying. He wasn't afraid of heartbreak. He was afraid of his own thoughts. There's a dangerous space between midnight and sunrise, especially for young men who tie their worth to love. I asked him to come home with me, but here was the problem. The next morning at 8 a.m., I had the biggest meeting of my career. 10 years of work, 1 contract. If I missed it, I'd lose everything, and I couldn't reschedule. At least, that's what I believed. Fatherhood isn't about grand gestures. It's about quiet decisions nobody sees. I drove home in silence. Ethan stared out the window. I kept thinking, he's 19, he'll survive. I survived my first heartbreak. He needs to learn. But another voice said, he didn't call his friends. He didn't call his mother. He called you. At 3:04 a.m., he fell asleep on my couch, exhausted, emotionally drained, still holding his phone. I stood there watching him, and I realized something terrifying. He didn't need a lecture. He needed proof. Proof that when the world collapses, his father won't. At 6:30 a.m., my alarm rang. Meeting at 8, 2-hour drive, no margin for delay. I walked to the living room. He was awake, eyes swollen, trying to act normal. "Dad, you should go." He said it like a man, but his voice betrayed the boy inside. That's when I made the hardest decision of my life. I picked up my phone and I sent one message: I won't be attending. 10 years of ambition gone in 10 seconds. My boss called immediately. I didn't answer. I turned off my phone and I sat next to my son. We didn't talk about her. We didn't analyze texts. We didn't blame. We made pancakes. Bad ones, burnt on one side, raw on the other. We watched an old movie he loved as a kid. We went for a drive. No destination. At one point, he asked quietly, "Why didn't you go to work?" I looked at him and said the sentence my father never said to me: "Because you matter more." He didn't cry. He nodded, but something shifted in him. Confidence doesn't come from success. It comes from knowing you're not alone in failure. I lost the contract, promotion gone. Colleagues called me irresponsible. My ex-wife said I was dramatic. But 3 months later, something unexpected happened. Ethan changed. He started working out, studying harder, building discipline, not to prove something to Alyssa, but to himself. One evening he said, "That night, when you stayed, I realized I don't need someone who says I'm not enough, and I don't need to beg to be loved." That was the moment I knew I didn't lose anything. I invested. Years later, when Ethan got engaged to someone else, someone kind, steady, loyal, he told her about that night. At the wedding rehearsal dinner, he stood up and said, "My dad once chose me over his entire career for one night. That's when I learned what love actually looks like." The room went silent, and I realized something powerful. Children don't remember your lectures. They remember your presence. We spend our lives chasing money, titles, validation, but sometimes all someone needs is one night, one decision, one proof that they matter. And that night, it defines everything after. If this story touched you, take a moment, ask yourself, who in your life needs you just for one night? And are you choosing ambition or presence? Comment below, family first, if you believe moments matter more than money. And if you want more emotional father-son stories that hit real-life truths, subscribe, because sometimes the strongest men aren't the ones who win, they're the ones who stay.